Hello there, welcome to Nnalubaale Sports, the home of all local sports content. And when you see me, I just need to talk about one thing, rugby. And what is on the lips of everyone in the rugby society is the URU Elective AGM coming up. So with me here today, I have Mr. Phillip Kiboijana. Mr. Phillip Kiboijana, you're welcome to Nnalubaale Sports.
Thank you, Sama. It's a pleasure and an honor. I mean, as happy as contacted by Nnalubaale Sports, it shows that they are good for the sport and want to listen to what we have to offer and share it with the stakeholders out there.
We've heard of your ambitions, but we still want to know who's the man behind Phillip Kiboijana. Who is this guy who has, come up and wants to take over Uganda Rugby Union? Who is this man?
Very young man by age, made 40 in December, father of two, married. That's me as personal life. But in terms of my sports journey, I would say it's been a roller coaster, especially coming from a non-sporting family. I can't explain where I got the passion and drive, but from once officiating in soccer, which is something few close friends know and laugh about, that was cut short by a health condition about 2007. But going into motorsport, where the Nnalubaale Sports CEO, at least I used to see, attend the races and cheer on. But then venturing, of course, into sports administration, yeah. A bit, when I was in motorsport, I chaired a steering committee that was having a negotiation, managing drivers and the breakout with the federation. But my major contribution has been in the rugby fraternity, from a Guardian Angels project many might not know about in early 2015 to the fan zone early days and conception. But moving on to Chadondo, where I had 2 terms as vice chairman and really learned a lot administratively. And then, of course, local organizing committee, where Sama, I worked with you. So in that, you can attest to some of my teamwork
Today
skills.
I'm a neutral, sir. I know nothing about you. I'm seeing you for the first time. I
Yeah.
don't know you.
Thank you. But of course, the local organizing committee there, where we were mandated for the last 2 years to organize the games, with the biggest being the ones in the lockdown, the Rugby Africa 15s, but most importantly, managing a continental tournament. That's the Rugby Africa Sevens, and running it successfully. But yeah, that's me as Phillip and my sports journey.
Phillip, what motivated you to run for this post? Because I see you've been in several sports disciplines, but you've come to rugby union and you want to be the president. What's the motivation behind such a move?
So first things first, I'm not saying I want to be the president. I am seeking for people to entrust me with the position of being the president. But like I've said, I've had this journey in sport, and especially rugby, where I've been involved in management and organization. And I've worked closely with the union and many in the union, and also at club level. But along that journey, while I have appreciated the steps that rugby has made progressively, I have also seen the challenges it's facing, which I worry, if are not dealt with, could hinder the growth of the game further. So it's where I said, look, I can put my foot forward to do my part to give to the sport, where I feel I can improve it further.
You've been involved in administration, organization of rugby games, etc. So I'm wondering, what particular set of skills do you bring to the table? Uh, what qualities make you that guy who is going to take the union forward?
Honestly, it's one skill, and I don't want to seem like I'm bragging. I pray I pull it off well. It is leadership. Because at the end of the day, it will be the ability to bring a team together in the XCOM and to work as a team, and bring on the clubs as well to work as a team. Because then, if you know the one goal, the one target you want to achieve, no one can single-handedly. I can't say I'll be the best president, I'll deliver that. What I can say is I want to work with the best team to deliver that. And that is where my test will come in. How do I bring the XCOM together, the societies together, the regionals together, the clubs together, the players, for us to walk this journey as one to take rugby to where we all want it to be?
We've had several complaints about the previous regimes. Uh, Social media power is making noise. This has happened, this and this. So you, as you, what weaknesses have you seen in the current regime or the previous regimes? And what do you plan to do better?
This is a question I keep facing. And I like how you phrased it because you've said what weaknesses. Someone asked me if it was a total failure, and I said no. And especially to say everyone who's out there usually puts up their hand to do their best will never get 100%, and they've had their wins. But if I'm to single out the topmost, one is communication, and many will agree. Yeah, you start with the things that won't cost money to correct, and communication is one of those. How do we keep all the stakeholders up to date? How do we keep all of them in the know? How do we keep all of them in the plan? The ExCom will sit and do a strategy. At one point, are the clubs involved in the strategy? And why? Key to rugby is the players. Very important, most important, yeah? If we started listing, my Phillip Wokorach, you won't say URU product, you'll say Chadondo. Mention Casito, you'll go to Cobs, Magomo, you can go on and on, Pirates. So at what point do we say this is a conversation for all of us? So we have to keep in touch, we have to communicate, we have to involve in the plans. And that's one of the things I felt was very lacking in the previous regime.
In the recent times, players have complained about their welfare. They think it's subpar. They feel they're not getting what they deserve. They feel they're giving a lot, but the union is giving very little to them. The 15th players complain that they're not getting the same treatment as the 7th team. And the 7th team, the players are contracted. That's something, it has been something notable of the previous regime. They have done something to contract the 7th player. But the 15 counterparts and the women and the other teams are left behind. So how can you address such a gap? How can you make the 15 squad to catch up with the 7 variation to bring all the games to the same level?
To your question, and I'll understand why the union contracted the 7s first. At that point, it was putting Uganda high up on the flag, which comes with many things. More game time, increased funding, exposure. But even these 7s players bring that experience back to the 15s. But your point is, how do we grow all of them? And not just 7s, 15s men. You have women in there. But even away from the women, the clubs and the players. Because we should be talking about contracting and player welfare all the way from development. So the key to it is not in one answer. The key to it is what is the strategy and what is your 4-year strategy saying and how is it prioritizing all this. If you can nip it, and that's why I'm saying it won't be a thing of Phillip, no. It will be a thing of the ExCom, the clubs, yeah? Because then when we sit down on a table, understand what we want to achieve and say, what is this journey? It might not be in 1 year. It could be in 4 years, but even that 4 year has priority. Year 1, you say we are doing A to D. Quarter 1 of this is A and B. And you come back and give a report, say Jan to March, we are meant to do these 10, we've achieved 7, 3, we are moving ahead. But you see, the moment everyone understands the strategy and what you want to achieve, then you start moving towards your goal. And the key is not achieving it immediately. Key is starting the journey to achieving it, where all players are contracted at all levels, and even the basics are catered for. Medical, things like nutrition are key. We never talk about them. We always jump first to remuneration, but it's not just that. Yeah, but then again, remuneration is beyond paying them. It might be little, but before you say, let's add it, can we tick some of the fails? How do we pay it on time? Because you see, it's also a progressive journey. It's about the available funds. It's about making sure more funds come in for all this. But all this is aligned to a strategy to deliver them.
Mr. Phillip, I understand you are the vice chairman, Chadon Rugby Club. How was your tenure there? What tangible achievements can you, mention someone can see they are a result of your work?
To this day, people will think it's an exaggeration, especially when there are big events. I get goosebumps at Chadondo. And it's partly because I'm so proud about what we achieved in 4 years. And one time, I was narrating this to someone and got emotional and almost teared. And someone next to us said, look, you always ask why people do this and where the pay is. And they said it's right there. There is a lot in knowing you've done a great contribution. But to speak to that is First of all, we built structures in Chadondo. Yeah. I'll give you an example. You've heard of the phrase Chadondo refs. Yeah. But why it came about is there's a time we're intentional about referees courses and recruiting. And we happened to end up having the most refs in. Yeah. We did a number of a level 1 coaching and level 2 coaching courses. And we're working with the union because we're intentional about these societies, the referees, the coaches, the TMs. But moving away from that to sponsorship, I think at that time we brought in Dial Special at a level people hadn't seen as a facility, which was good for the sport and good for them because there was a point at which they could also see their ROIs almost immediately. Yeah, but even to the experience, I was one of the people who painfully chased for floodlights games. And what hurt me most, while it was approved, the first time we had a floodlight, I missed it because I was in SA and SAA staff went on strike and the flight had to be changed and all, and I got here late. It was very painful, but it was a year and a half of chasing. But why? Game day experience was key. Yeah. Imagine Friday 8 p.m. you're going for a game. I'm sure those who went through it loved it. First fun park concept that we've kept building and making bigger over the years. Because you know, rugby is not just a sport. Rugby is more than just a sport. It's an experience, and we need to deliver on that. And I think Chadondo made strong gains in that. But going away from the structure and all that, even when it comes to the infrastructure, I'm sure over the time, people saw big changes. Someone online, I think you saw it, who was saying, why would we mention the toilets as an achievement? And I said, look, you host your stakeholders. Yeah. If their comfort is not your priority, then you're getting it wrong. But you see, as facilities, we have to tap into every income to grow. So what someone might just see as additional toilets to Chadondo is what we used to see as more people coming to the place because of that comfort, more people spending at the facility, more income to the club, which trickles down to the players. You get me? So it was a whole journey. So over the 4 years, I could list that and many more that we achieved. But me, the key thing was we saw the growth of the club, and it was clear both in structure and infrastructure, with the biggest being the constitution. Chadondo had not done its constitution again since 1999. How many years are those?
No, could that be because of Chadondo English? Eh?
Why?
You failed to build a constitution because Oluzungu. Eh?
No, please.
Chadondo. What is the constitution in Uganda?
I don't know.
But you're from Chadondo, bro.
Yeah, because I'm speaking English. But the fact is, when it came to the constitution, yeah, we reviewed it since 1999, and it had a lot of things we needed to improve. We know the risks the facilities were exposed to as Lugogo area developed that we needed to close off. We knew how we need to look at player welfare. Between 99 and 2018 is a big difference, you know. We knew how to look at it differently in terms of the club growth journey. So me, it was a big achievement that I actually led the constitution review and left the club with a way stronger constitution than we found in place.
We've always been trying to push the rugby game out there. We want to get as many fans as much as possible. One Musa Mwonge once said, Chadondo has failed to convert pork eaters into rugby fans. So what is your strategy to convert those pork eaters into rugby fans? And also, looking at how we are trying to capture the young audience, what specifically are you trying to do, are you going to do to enable us capture that young audience into the rugby fraternity?
Yeah, I know what it's always been with the young audience, but I'll start at Musa's question. So I don't know how he counted that they are not converting the pork eaters, but I like to use stories that can relate. You know Eddie Chiwanuka?
Yes.
The fans cheerleader.
Yes, Mr. Google.
Yes. Do you know how Eddie started watching rugby?
No.
Eddie, you know, is a mechanic. Eddie delivered the car for a client. Found the client there, started watching the game. Look at what we have in him today. And that's why we say it's more than just the sport. It's the people he thinks are not converted, actually converted. We have so many people who come and say what's happening here and fall in love with the sport. So it has many generations. There are guys who get attached to it in school. There are people who get attached to it through friends. There are guys who just go looking. But everyone who walks into Chadondo, for example, would be an opportunity for us to convert them into a fan. And that's why we are big on the experience. Like I talked about the fun parks, the night games. We know a guy who came at 8 p.m. on Friday night because he said that's the plot. But he's now watching every game and pressuring people, where are you? Why don't you watch? Yeah, we just saw a confession of a fan who traveled on Saturday to watch support the Heathens in Ginger. Yeah, and it's testament to it. And the thing is, as a union as well, you want to see what relates to these people, even the young generation.
True.
Yeah, and it's the game both off and on both on and off the pitch. But even the game itself, how do we bring the excitement? How to bring that competition out? I'm very happy we have one of the most competitive leagues. 6 games to go, and you can't even say who will take it. And that's both for the top 3 and bottom 3, because there's the relegation battle as well. But these alone are factors that will drive people to the sport. So there's a lot we can do around that.
So we've had issues of funds being mismanaged in courts. Funds are allocated, but they never trickle down to the last person, say the player. And we always hear rumors of this one ate the money, there was money allocated but never reached. So how do you plan to make sure there's accountability within the union, and how transparent are you going to be? So what means are you going to use to make sure we are convinced we are getting value for our money in courts?
I like that you bring it up, Sama. And let me tell you, accountability is not just finances. And this is why I touched on communication. Yeah. So before we go to finances, accountability first is you being accountable to every stakeholder in the sport. Yeah. When do we get the reports? And that's one of the things I really want to correct. Why do we have to listen from the union EXCOM at only an AGM? Would it hurt to say every 3 months of the year, quarterly? Let's have it doesn't even have to be an AGM. We can call it a round table. EXCOM and club officials and all, yeah, beyond the chairman's round table, but have that bigger sitting where you come and you talk about the plans you had and what you've achieved and what how they are progressing. Because if you're doing that, then even at that point, if funds have come in, people know funds have come in. If funds are meant for something, people know funds are meant for something. When you come back to update after the next 3 months, the funds you received that you are meant to spend, you'll have to give the update. So one of the key things in accountability, is that constant engagement and communication on the planning and the strategy. But also, yes, to the finances. And this is, someone said something that I found very interesting recently. Friend of mine, Solomon. Accountability is what builds consensus. It looks small, but it's key. Accountability is what builds consensus. And in it says, look, people can't trust you with their vision if they can't trust you with their finances. But also then, what happens to your vision? What happens to your license to operate? As an EXCOM, accountability is our license to operate. Why? If we are not accountable, and I don't know why people don't know they have this immense power. You can call an SGM. You can do a vote of no confidence. You can put the people out. We never explore them. But the route we've seen everyone take that's happening, and which is what we have to avoid, is people decide to sit back. That is when you start calling, you hear AGM was called, there was no quorum. SGM was called, there was no quorum. Meetings were called, there's no quorum. Why? Because people have lost faith in you. Yes? And you have no consensus. And that is where accountability is key, not just financially, but in terms of also you as a person being accountable to the strategy, to the plan, and keeping everyone involved on that journey.
You've been involved in organization of a couple of international tournaments.
Very many.
Which one stands out for you?
Rugby Africa Sevens.
Rugby Africa Sevens.
One, it's the biggest tournament I have ever handled. I brag when I'm telling people about it, by the way. I don't just say Rugby Africa, I say I managed a continental tournament because
That's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
that's the level at which it was. It's like talking football and say AFCON. Yeah. And we hosted that, and between the journey to getting to the games and the intensity of the games, and on the days themselves, I mean, The behind the scenes that people don't know, for example, the flight that crash landed in Entebbe, and the drivers and of the buses meant to pick the players telling you the airport is
It's
closed.
close. Yeah.
And you have 10 teams in Nairobi, and you're told this is the cutoff point by which they should get here. And you're now saying, buses, let's start moving to the border. Guys from Nairobi, start organizing to come, to getting here on day one, and half the roads are closed where the teams are in Munyonyo. And to get their food to them is a challenge. And to the rains on day two that we all saw, which is becoming a famous meme of me.
Well,
Well,
that day we had to mop
yeah.
Chatondo.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
In
Walk in rain and
Naminango,
water.
they used to punish us to go and mop the rugby pitch.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, you brought the skill to
that day the
life.
skills paid off. So
But it showed you, when I saw people leave VIP, VVIP, ordinary, different nationalities, and walk onto that pitch and say, what can I do? And everyone putting in a collective effort. Those are the things that show you that sport is a great platform to inspire. But and these are one of the many learnings we took out of that tournament, but also in terms of the rapport we built, the Senegalese who are happy and say they'll come back any day. They've never experienced that, yeah? To the Tunisians, to everyone who was involved. It was quite an experience, seeing the teams at the hotel, how they interacted, seeing the fans at the games, both in the fan park and in the pitch. But overall, pulling off such a massive tournament. I think in the last decade, it's probably the biggest tournament we've had, rugby-wise, in Uganda. To me, was a big achievement.
that was an international tournament, and we emerged victorious. So you can see Uganda is competitive at the international stage. So what do you plan to do to make sure we stay competitive at the international stage? In fact, we would like to qualify for the World Series. Would want our 15th team to qualify for the Rugby World Cup. Our women's team will also want it to be up there. So what do you think you can do to make sure we get up there?
I want to take it away from what I think. I want to take it to what we will do as a team, yeah, and as a union, because to me, like I mentioned earlier, the players are key, but who gives us these players? The clubs. What have we done to assist clubs on these development pathways? I don't know why I'm even saying we. What has the union done to assist clubs on these development pathways? It's hard to point out. I give examples of, for example, Richard Lumo at Rams. Hardly any sponsor. On a Saturday, the man posts 3 junior sides he's training. It's very good. He's tapping into the community. He's bringing the community to him. But how does the union then help Lumo? Because even engaging some guys, for example, in some of the conversations I've had, it came out Hippos now to help the second team goes with them almost everywhere the first team is to also play a game. So they are incurring almost the second cost with the junior side as they are with the senior side. But we know all sponsors are going to come and sponsor the senior side. It's your best foot forward. But where do we become intentional about assisting on development? Do we sit as an ex-com and the clubs and say, look, for every sponsorship you get, 10 or 20% is going to be dedicated to that docket? Do we make it intentional in those negotiations? Do we say, a case of Lumu, if you helped with porridge and nutrition, it's a foot-in? It doesn't have to be big, but it has to start somewhere. Let the conversation start. And off that then, you start growing it, because it has to be gradual. Where are we seeing, for example, if you jumped from Robert Seguya and Alan Musoke at African Leopards, you'll next mention Phillip Okorachi. How many generations of players have been in there? Now you jump from Phillip Okorachi, Aaron. How many are you? Where do you see the next Phillip Okorachi in 5-6 years? There might be a few glimpses here and there, but you see what I'm talking about. It is a journey from development. So we can't say the players we have now, no, let's get them ready for the next World Cup or stay at the top. But we can say, how do we have a structured strategy to grow, get to the top, stay at the top? I'm one of the people who feels we are lucky to be at the top. When Sevens won in 2016, how much effort had been put? People didn't even know they were training. People didn't even know they had gone to Nairobi. I was there in that embarrassing moment when they came back and The coach was sharing the little money he had between the players, and they had a few samosas there. But they won. They became champions. And you can attribute it, if we are to be honest and genuine with ourselves, is you can attribute a lot of that to Tolbert Onyango. If you said take him out of that picture, would we be there?
Definitely no.
There's a big chance no. So how do you take it away to say, let's not survive on the individual effort? And this is everywhere. The club chairman putting in the extra shift, you know, the coach putting in the extra shift, the player putting in the extra shift. How do we make it a structured unit that has that pathway is what the discussion should be.
This coming term, your presidency, it will run from 2023 to 2027. That's right? So what do you envision the Uganda Rugby Union would be like in 2027?
I would want to list a number of things, not one. Better competition and bigger, yeah. So by 2027, and I'm not saying it will happen in 2027, it can happen in 2024. We should start discussing University League. Where is it? We should discussing school and growth. Yes, they've resumed. I think we have about 12 schools. But if I remember well, 2016, 2017, we had about 16 schools. I don't know how we went backwards there. Yeah, but there was also that lapse. But how do we have the bigger league? It has to be intentional. You don't have to wake up and say the league is ending, let's make it 12. How do we say the plan is in a year it should be 12, in another 2 years should be 14, and also you're taking it to the Central League, to the regionals. It's not just in one place. How do we get intentional about women's rugby? Some of these things might offend people, but we have to sit with clubs and say, look, if each of you club as a condition had a women's team and will dedicate maybe this amount of financing for you to that team, because we know the challenges, let's try it. Let's start the work, because then you're also increasing the player base of the ladies as well. So it is the bigger and better competitions. It is the more visibility. It is the bigger sponsors. It is the commercialization, because that's where it starts to trickle in. That's where you start talking about player contracts. That's where you start talking about welfare. That's where you start talking about even these players going professional. In fact, one of the boxes we need to tick is if in 2027 we don't have only a Phillip Okorache, you'll probably have returned, but you have more than 10 Phillip Okoraches. You know that now you're on the right journey. You're ticking boxes down, and that is the product up there.
2027, that would be a World Cup year. Do you think Uganda has a chance of qualifying for the 15th Rugby World Cup?
Yeah, a lot can happen in 4 years, Summer. A lot can happen in 4 years. Like I said, it's about being intentional about it. So it's not saying we have to be at the World Cup in 2027 and you wait for 2027 and say, guys, let's start training 4 months early. Let's, prepare to be at the World Cup, qualifiers and all. But how do you sit now and say, let's start preparing for the next World Cup? We are not in this one. We can't make this one. But there is 4 years. If we start, what do we need to do between now and the first qualifier of that World Cup? And then we see if we do all that, what are our chances? Yeah. And if then it shows that the chances are still not good, because you're planning, you can say, okay, but then where does it get us? Are we still in a better position? And that's why we have to have a strategy that guides all this. Otherwise, part of the mistakes we've been making is we wake up and decide we have a year and we'll make it. No. There's a lot of preparation that goes in, even with the players, so much in the back end. And I like that you've mentioned it as a 4-year journey. That's what it should be. Not waiting for the qualifiers in 2025 and we say, now let's start. No. We need to start that discussion now if we are to be intentional about it.
There are a couple of candidates coming up for this role, Uganda Rugby Union president, and would like to know what makes you the best candidate? What gives you an edge over the other guys?
So, which guys? Because I thought I'm alone in the race since I declared. I've not seen anyone. The candidate I talked to.
The guys who are declaring undercover, others are up there, others that have just not made it official. Well, I should give it to you. You are the first guy to come out officially to declare it. But you being the first doesn't mean you are the best. Disclaimer. But you could be the best, but doesn't mean you are the best. So what makes you the best? What gives you that edge? Why should we vote for you?
I would peg it on two things. Experience is one of them. In administration, I've given a number of, I think it's coming to 10 years in sports administration. So I understand the challenges in there, the workings in there. And the second is I've also worked closely with the union, and I know the systems in the union. So it is those two that I would peg on. Of course, there's the current president. He can use the same. But then I have my vision and promise I'm giving. He has his. So when it comes to that, but again, like I said, I'm still waiting for people to announce officially, and I know which candidates are in the race. But you see, at the end of the day, my wish is that every union excomposition has a number of candidates coming out, because everyone who comes out is ideas. Personally, I told someone that even if I lost this election, everything I do, I want to go out with a learning. What lessons have I taken? What ideas beyond mine have I had out there? Or if I get in, one of the things I said is then how do we get all these good ideas and say what works? Yeah. So it's not just about that, but in terms of age, yeah, being in the sport, being in it administratively, working with the union, those I believe give me an edge. At least I don't have to introduce myself to many rugby people.
So Mati.
If I don't, who will?
Philip, it was a pleasure having you here today. But before we sign out, what are your concluding remarks?
So my concluding remarks, and this is to a question many have asked. Someone said I was on TV, I'm meeting the media like you guys, Nnalubaale Sports, and they're saying, but the people who vote are the officials. Why are you talking to everyone? And I said, look, one, the officials represent people as well. They are voted in. Some of these officials might not have time when we meet them to take our ideas to the people they represent. But those people will have heard as well and could give their say. But me, most importantly, is every stakeholder in rugby, be it a sponsor, be it a fan, be it a kid just joining the sport, be it the medics, be it who, needs to know what every candidate is bringing to the table, because it affects everyone. What they are speaking of doing, their plans will have an impact on everyone. They will not have an impact on the officials that vote. There might be 40 to 49 officials that vote, but then you're not going to become an excom for 40 to 49 officials. You're going to become an excom for the sport of rugby in Uganda. And whatever you're planning is for everyone involved. So also is people don't see that we need to use every avenue to market our sport. Even through this election, there's a person who will know about rugby, hear about rugby, and that's a start. And that's why I keep telling to people, whatever we do, let it be a clean campaign. Let it focus on what we want to do for the sport, where we want to take the sport, and let this election be part of the things that inspire those to join rugby and those in rugby to believe and stay in. Those are my remarks. That is my appeal.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Philip. We wish you the best in your upcoming election.
Sama, say that like you mean it. Say it with energy.
Philip, we wish you the best in the upcoming election.
Thank you very much. Thank you for hosting me, Nnalubaale Sports. It's a pleasure. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, I hope next time we meet, we are drinking to celebrate, not to forget.
Now I believe the wishes. Thank you.
Well, guys, you heard it from the man himself. He still thinks he's an opposed, but well, he's in for a shocker, or he's about to shock us. Well, good luck to him. Don't forget to subscribe to Nnalubaale Sport, and we'll be here to keep you updated for everything.